Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just waiting for Yulia. I
Okay.
think she'll be joining us soon. I was actually just listening to some Bangles.
I was listening to that.
So Yulia will be joining us very shortly.
Okay.
How are you?
I am fantastic. The weather is making me feel really good.
Isn't it great? I know. I actually was out today for a good part of the day, and it
Yeah.
was so refreshing compared to what we've been experiencing lately.
Oh yeah.
I was listening to this on the radio in the car, and it was just such a perfect song for this weather and driving around.
It was stuck in your head.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this stuff. Almost anything 80s, I love.
I do too, actually. 70s, 80s, 90s. I don't want to date myself too much, but I have to say there's some good in all of those.
I'm a huge late 70s, early 80s. Actually, most of 80s, I love. Yeah. I'm probably in my element typically when I'm
I
listening to
think
80s
so.
music.
I have to agree. Take it with. So, okay, we're gonna wait for Yulia, and I hope that she is able to. So, this is the first time we're actually doing with three people.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, so this will be interesting. Hopefully, it works out perfectly. What's nice is that I already can hear you perfectly well, and we've had some in the past some technical issues where we couldn't I couldn't hear her. No one could
Oh,
hear her.
okay.
And that was
Gotcha.
the person joining me. So she's the person joining me. I couldn't hear her. So I'm hearing you. It's wonderful. And so let's see if she is connecting now, and then we can start.
I feel like I do this all the time now, so it better work.
Like Zoom calls and Google Meets and everything else. I
Yeah,
know. I know
I
it's the
do this
way.
so often that I just, it better work.
It's actually becoming it's feeling normal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. This is kind of these key phrases keep going around. Like this is the new norm,
This
right?
is the new norm, but it is the new norm because
Yeah.
all of our team meetings are on Zoom. We are doing client meetings via
Hmm.
Zoom. And the ones that, let's say, are not as tech savvy, we will do like a WhatsApp video or FaceTime video.
Yeah.
So we actually did a walkthrough, a
Yeah.
market evaluation walkthrough,
Okay.
WhatsApp video call.
So they're doing this on appraisals now. They're actually saying, "Do you have WhatsApp? Let's do a WhatsApp video and let's walk through the house."
Exactly, unless it's vacant, and then
Yeah.
they'll go. Because I had a couple of vacant properties, and
Mhm.
the appraisers had no issues going. So let's see if Yulia is joining us, or I'm not sure. What time is it? It's 4:32.
432. Yeah. So, like, I actually invested in a
There she is.
relatively good Logitech webcam. So I
Yeah,
don't even use the laptop webcam because I always found it was grainy. But I
yeah.
found like I went and got this because I use it so often. Hey, Sam.
Oh,
Hello. Hi,
hi.
Lauren. Hi, Asif. Hi, Lauren.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Good. I can't complain.
So you have a Logitech camera? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, I went and got a Logitech webcam
Mm-hmm.
because I realized I'm starting to do so much stuff that I wanted to be as clear as possible, and I wanted to be able to record these and then put it back out in the market. So I
That's
wanted
fantastic.
the quality to be good. I mean, it was a little bit of an investment, a couple $100, like 150 or something like that.
That's not
Um,
bad.
but I mean, now if I compare this quality to what my laptop does, day and night.
Yeah.
Really? I'm going to look into that then after this.
and it's got the speaker and everything on it too. So when I talk into it, it works for me.
And so is it just connected to your
USB plug? Now, do you have a laptop, an Apple or a?
I have a Mac, yeah.
So you're gonna have to get an adapter and then plug it in because it's typically USB, right?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so that makes sense. I'm gonna totally look into it. So Yulia, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we've got Asif Kasim with Integrity Tree Financial, and we have Yulia Tarski with Intrend Mortgages, and myself with Key Group and Royal LePage, your community realty. And this is the first time you're our first guest, Asif. We're so honored to have you.
This is awesome.
Yeah, first many we have a lineup going, so it's gonna be interesting.
So you're our first guest, and this is working out perfectly. I'm so happy when technology works. Isn't it fantastic?
Yeah.
So, Asif, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into like some questions?
I started out in the mortgage industry. So first of all, I started out in banking in the late '90s, and I've done a variety of roles. I started in collections, to be honest with you. I started as a collection officer, and I moved over. It was an interesting role. I mean, I was in college, and it got me through. And then I went to human resources, and then from human resources, finance, and then I became an underwriter for the mortgage channel for a little bit. And that was a stepping stone to become a sales rep at TD Bank. And I did that for a bit. And then Scotia called me and asked me to come and take over their northern GTA region. So I ran the northern part of Toronto for Scotia Bank for all the mortgage reps. And then inevitably, I decided to go independent. As I became an independent mortgage agent, I had team members following me from different places. So then eventually turned into a sizable team, and then we turned it into a brokerage. And then we started opening other divisions, and then became an accounting division, and then a small loans division. And now it's mortgages, accounting, small loans, life insurance, investments, and cash flow. So it's basically a financial firm now with a holistic view of things. So
that's fantastic, Asif. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks. I still do mortgages, but I do everything. Oh man, it's been at least three years or so.
Yeah, I would say for sure.
When you had that coffee mug.
Yes. Yeah. So Yulia does mortgages as well, and we talked about that. We do segments a couple of times a week, and we usually talk about something different every week. We're probably going to talk about something after our conversation with you. Yes, Yulia? Yulia? Oh, I think she froze. Oh, okay. Yulia's screen is frozen, so we're just going to wait for her internet to come back.
Sure.
But in the meantime, we thought it was really important to talk about financial health. There you are. Are you there? And hi, Melissa. Melissa was in collections too. She's someone, a viewer that's watching right now. That's always interesting, collections.
Collections is a unique career.
I'm sure. It's a good break-in, isn't it?
It definitely shows you the ropes the hard way. And
yes,
it can really harden you up.
I could say so.
As a collections officer, when I first started, I felt bad for everybody. Like I was... there's practically tears welling up every time I had another conversation. By the time I left collections 2.5 years later, I was like, I don't care about anything anymore. I was like, did you pay your bill? No. Okay, pay your bill. Okay,
I think she's going to try to join us again because her internet connection was bad. You know what? I think that's a great way to break into the financial arena. I like you said, it either toughens you up, and it has to toughen you up, right?
Yeah.
But I can only imagine all the stories that you got.
Man, it was also a different time, a different era of time.
Of course.
There were some funny stories, some heartbreaking stories, some scratch your head stories. I had one lady.
Sorry, my internet connection.
No problem. Okay. I had one lady come to me, and so she didn't pay her mortgage bill, and it was Christmas time. And I said, so what happened? She's like, well, I decided to buy presents. And I said, so you chose to buy presents for the kids versus have a roof over their head.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. I'm like, someone will be in touch with you. And I push her off to the next collection division. I'm like, what am I going to tell you? Right.
That's very interesting that you say that. That's actually a really good example.
Yeah.
He and I have been talking about mortgage deferrals lately, just because that's, you know, something that the banks have rolled out to help people in crisis time. But we thought it was a really good idea to talk about financial health, because this has taken everyone by complete surprise, this whole situation.
For
People
sure.
are, right? People are getting laid off. People are having to choose which bills to pay. You know, people who didn't think about having a nest egg. I don't know if you want to call it a savings, whatever you want to call it. Because
An emergency fund.
An emergency fund is a great way to call it too. So I think that I thought that you would be perfect to talk about this today. So, like from the financial industry perspective, what have you found during this pandemic?
So when this all started, no one knew how long this would take and how far this would go. And I don't think a lot of people were thinking of job loss, because this is new to North America, right? The concept of having a virus and being on lockdown, people weren't thinking long term. They weren't thinking, what if I lose my job? What if I get laid off? It's all brand new. I mean, brand new to us. I mean, all of us are probably in the same age range. So none of us have lived through this, unless you're coming from a place outside of North America where it had this. We've never seen this before, right?
No.
What I have found that has really resonated with myself and I guess a lot of financial professionals is that the majority of society are not financially prepared to go without income beyond a month or two max. So what I'm saying is, if you don't have income coming in for 1 month or 2 months, by the time you hit the third month, all your resources are depleted. And many of them are even worse than that. They miss one biweekly paycheck and everything falls apart.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think we all know people that are in that position too.
It's been such a challenge for people financially that if you went to most people and said, I'm not going to pay you for 2 weeks or 1 month, they're in a position where something has to be sacrificed, or they're going to miss payments on something, right? And it's unfortunate, but it's the way society was built. And we've been living in such an era of time of free, easy money, cheap money, and things come relatively simplistically. And there's always a solution to dig yourself out by using more credit. To now, what happens when you don't have money coming in? What do you do, right? So that has become a real major conversation. And so that's the financial side of, does everybody have enough money put aside to get them by? I think the common school of thought is, do you have 3 months of money as an emergency fund to cover 3 months of bills, right?
At least.
Most people don't, right?
Yeah, agreed.
If you stop and think about what your bills are.
No one does.
Yeah. Most people don't, right? Yulia, I would suspect, even like you see budgets. You see, as a mortgage agent, you see the money they have coming in.
I do.
You calculate the ratios.
And no one looks at credit cards. Yeah. No one looks at credit cards as the debt at all. That's the issue that I see. And then they say, oh, they're just a credit card. And I say, well, that's what it is. Yeah. Many credit cards on your credit bureau. That's what it is. That's what it gets you,
right?
You know, Yulia, you could probably relate to this. When you speak with a client and they say that's not a bill, they're also not taking into account if they have medication that they have to pay for every month, if they have child care, or if they have parental care or housing care for their parents, or those are not things that show up on a credit report, right? But they're all costs.
Those
right?
are, yeah.
So those are things that we as mortgage professionals in the industry, we don't talk enough about. We don't sit there and tell a client, listen, I know credit wise your credit looks good, the ratios look fine, but have you thought about all these additional costs that you still have them? They're not going anywhere. We're just not incorporating it into your ratios. That sort of thing isn't discussed.
So you're talking about like childcare? So when they're paying childcare, like
Anything
daycare?
monthly. That's anything monthly that my little one, she goes to daycare, right? Not right now, but she will come back, and that's
Right.
a lot of money. So yeah.
And it doesn't show up on your credit report
Of
or
course,
as a debt.
no, nothing. It's not gonna show. And what about the insurance bills, right? Monthly
Of course.
insurance. Yeah.
Exactly. I was going to say, what if you have life insurance? What if you have retirement, like you want to retire at a certain age, so you put aside $150 a month into a TFSA? It's still a bill. It's part of your retirement. If you have a life insurance policy, whether it's a term life or a whole life, and you're putting aside $100 to $500 a month, that's
a
still
debt.
that's
It's a debt,
something,
but it
right?
doesn't show up. Right.
No.
That's a very good point. Never thought about all that. That's
Like,
really interesting.
Yeah.
for example, how often do you guys vacation in a normal world? Once a year?
Well, twice, 3 times.
Once, twice, 3 times? Now, if you look at your average everyday consumer, how much do they spend on a vacation? Maybe up to $3,000-$4,000.
Depending
Yeah.
on how many members in the family. True.
Oh,
So,
sure.
so if you're spending $3,000 to $4,000 and you're barely getting by, where are you getting the extra vacation money from? Right? If that's part of your annual routine, these are things to take into account.
Absolutely.
So what most people miss is the fact that it's not what do I qualify for? It's what does the cash flow look like? And I think that's the basis for everything.
Yeah.
Right? So that's definitely one thing that's come out of this whole situation, is that people are realizing they're not prepared. They're just not. The other part of it is they're not prepared financially for the immediate time frame, but there's also they're not prepared for what if something happens to me. We've seen a lot of people pass away recently, right? A lot of people who are passing away, do they have a power of attorney? Do they have a will?
Mm-hmm.
Do they actually have insurance? As we all know, often it takes two incomes to make a mortgage work. If something happens
Yeah.
to one of those spouses, is there enough money put aside to pay for the mortgage so that the spouse doesn't have to uproot the life of them and the children to go elsewhere? And that's not an instantaneous thing either, right?
It is not.
Even put all of that aside, even as simplistic as I pass away tomorrow and I want to get buried, do I have enough money to bury me? Which is what, 20, 30, 40 grand, depending on how lavish you want to go.
Exactly.
Most people aren't prepared for this. So
Yeah.
as much as I'm a mortgage agent and professional from the heart, I started in that area. I've now looked holistically and said mortgages is an aspect of life, and it doesn't impact everybody.
No.
But there's so many other things we have to take a look at that they don't teach us this in school.
It's true. And I've said that
And
for
parents
years.
often, not all, I'm generalizing here, parents often don't tell us stuff about finance and how to manage money. Parents don't talk about money with their children. Not a common thing, right? So who are you going to learn it from?
It should be part of the education system, Asif. I've said that for years.
Yeah.
And just for the record, I'm going to put my hand up here, which, can you see me? I try to talk to my kids about finances. They don't want to listen to me.
It's true. And so one of the things that as the company evolves and grows, I'm looking at putting together a financial literacy education for the youth.
Very important.
Teenager up till early 20s and all the way through, to be honest with you, but really focus on the younger demographic to say,
For sure.
Get a good relationship with money in, money out. What are your goals? How are you going to accomplish those goals, and how to stick to your game plan, right? And I have ways of doing it, but we're evolving this curriculum of some form. And I'd like to be able to, relay that out to the young generation and say, hey, listen, I'm going to give you something I wish I had, I never had, And if I had it, I would probably not be on this call right now. I'd probably be on an island somewhere that I own.
Chicken
So
mojitos.
yeah,
But for now, what I do now with my clients, I send them to Canada.ca. There is financial literacy page there, and it actually has those little things. It's just a matter of them committing their time and going through that. So it actually has those budget
yes,
savvy tips and all of that, which I found very great when I was going through many different things many years ago. I was going through that, and I was thinking, maybe I need to look into that. That's how like I stumbled upon Canada, and now I'm thinking how people take it all for granted. The resources out there, right? They
Mhm.
just don't
Me too.
want to follow advice. They just don't follow anything out there. They just get themselves in a situation and try to come out by themselves without having any strategy, any way of doing things. So
Exactly.
that's temporarily solution. Of course, the course would be a great idea, but
It is.
for people who don't have means to go anywhere right now, or don't want to enroll anywhere, just Canada.ca at your own pace, financial literacy page, and then there's many different things from insurance to mortgages to how to plan and budgeting and all of those things. It's all there, just matter of you looking for it. So
I I agree. There's so much material there. Actually, there's so much material that I was overwhelmed when I looked at it. I'm like, oh my god. Um, what I have found is that there are a handful of people are really good that if you say, here's the information, go.
I was
They'll
just
go.
going to say that. Agree.
But there's a lot of people that sit there and say, thank you for the information. I see the value, but I'm not going to go click on the link and I'm not going to read all this material. They would rather if I sat with them or somebody sat with them and said, here are the things you need to know. Here's what's important. Here's what you could focus on later. And let me walk you through it.
yeah,
And I think that's kind of where my career shifted a bit when I started realizing there was a couple of things that I learned over time.
Yeah.
And this is a personal, I guess, dive into my world and how I evolved into my space. Um, I essentially grew up in an environment where no one spoke about money, and then my parents they separated when I was very young, or when I was a teenager, and I learned about money management via my mother. My mother wasn't educated on this stuff. So I only learned from what she knew, and how could I learn any better, right? And my
Right.
father didn't really talk about this stuff either. So my spending habits were what I learned from what was around me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then all children learn from what they see,
It's
right?
true.
Children only learn from what they see. A child isn't going to pick up a book at a very young age and figure it out that way. That's a very rare anomaly. Most of them look at mom and dad, brother and
Mm-hmm.
sister, grandma, grandpa, and see what do they do, and they emulate that. So I emulated what my mom did, and it wasn't probably the best spending habits on the planet. However, I figured it out and got by, but I didn't know anything. Years go by, I become a mortgage agent. And as a mortgage agent, you can attest to this. Actually, Lori, you as in real estate, we're 100% commission, right?
Yeah,
So I'm a
exactly.
mortgage agent at the bank. 2 years into the career, don't know what I'm doing still figuring out how to spell mortgage. And
It's a funny
I
word.
got I got this close to having to file for bankruptcy because I didn't know what I was doing. I was spending way more than I was bringing in
Mm-hmm.
with no education and no direction, and I was new, so my business was very tiny, right?
Yes.
Luckily, it started to get better and better, so my sales went up, which is great. All that did was help me spend more. It didn't teach me about money, right?
That's so
So
important. It's so
so again, I am now masking my lack of knowledge with increased sales. I just go make more money, right? Which is what many self-employed people do. We just spend more money, but let's just go make more money to spend less, or to cover for the money that we've spent, right?
yeah.
And I had to learn the hard way over time that I couldn't sustain that level of activity because I'll burn out. right? And then I'm tied to the dollar. I am tied to whatever I make, right? So then years and years go by and I'm working on these things. But again, I'm not fully there yet. My dad became ill, passed away, and he didn't have life insurance. So there were funds around, but we had to figure stuff out, right? There were challenges, but it really made me open my eyes to what if? What if these were certain circumstances? And I started recalling clients who have called me over the last decade saying, this happened, what do I do? And my first question was always, did you have credit protection? Did you have insurance or whatever it may be? And depending on that answer, I could figure out what to do and how to help them. So now my dad passes away and now it's live. Now it's real. It's tangible because it's my dad, right? So it hits home when it's personal. When it's somebody outside, you don't feel it the same way, right?
No.
But when it's home, oh, wow, okay, this is serious. So then I started looking at life from a different angle. Still learning. And I realized I got to get a grip and I got to figure stuff out. I got to figure out how to manage money a certain way. I got to figure out how to put aside money for the long haul. And I started inquiring into insurance. And then I realized the older you get, the more insurance costs. And then I was on the cusp of turning. Yeah, I was on the cusp of turning 40. So I think I was 39 and I caught it just before I hit that spike because it's going like this. And then at 40 it goes like that, right? So I was fortunate, but I'm learning as I go. And then I started realizing as I stand back and I look at my clients' profiles and I realize, yes, you're approved. Yes, you can get this home, but you're going to be living hand to mouth for quite some time.
Yes.
Or here's your circumstance, right? And I started realizing these things, and then many clients would ask for, for help with different things, and then I started realizing maybe this is an opportunity for me to redefine what I do and how I do it. Don't get me wrong, I still do mortgages, I still love mortgages, but it's not my everyday drive. I help out lots of people. I have a book of business. I've been doing it for a while, but I'm not out there on the hunt. And I have a team of agents and they all are doing jobs too, right? Like they're all mortgage agents out there. For me, it's now, how do I get you from where you are in your life to where you want to be in life, the most cost efficient way that prepares you for where you want to be? How do I help you do that? Whether it's, let's start with a basic TFSA or a basic RSP, or let's talk about, you know what, you need some insurance because here's what you're going to have to pay for if something were to go wrong. Or, are you in a position where you just have basic cash flow? So I started going down that path of getting educated and licensed and get softwares. And so now I look at life different than I used to. And I mean, I started changing things in my life as well. I mean, I got rid of the fancy car and I downgraded and I tried to think twice before I'm going to spend money. I'm like, all right, could I just do this at home myself? Or do I need to do I need to buy this? And I'm thinking a little differently than I used to. Do we need the $1,000 iPhone? Probably not. I could get the older model, take the extra $700-800, put it into an investment, and that'll make money for me. I'll be much better off. Right?
Priorities.
Starting to think that way.
Yeah, priorities.
A lot of the young people, do they need the $200 running shoes? Probably not, right?
For sure not.
It's the education piece of understanding priorities, what is important,
Absolutely.
how money is going to pay off in the long run, and then knowing that I know things that your average consumers, we know things that your average consumers don't understand about compound interest, right?
Of course. Yes.
And the time value of money and all that stuff. So that's kind of where we're at.
You know what, I went through very, very similar experience. I mean, almost identical from like my dad passed away too, and everything changed for us as well from that one thing because we didn't expect it. And he didn't have life insurance. So now we had to come up with money for the funeral. My mom was not employed at the time. So like honestly, I almost feel like almost identical situation that you went through, and that really opened our eyes to finances. Even though we were good savers, we were taught to be good savers and only to spend what we had. And credit cards were like, you don't use those. You know, if you can't pay cash, don't buy it. But again, that definitely was a change, a time that really opened our eyes to look at things different. So like based on all of this and people you've been seeing, and I know even Yulia's been doing a lot more refinances right now, and and that's normal, right? Less new mortgages, but more refinancing. I think we're starting to pick up on the new mortgages now. What would your advice be, though, in general? What would your advice be to people, Asif?
When it comes to the mortgage world, I think a lot of my thought process has changed to just because you can afford it based on qualifications doesn't mean you can afford it based on lifestyle. Be a little bit more cautious about what you buy. Maybe you don't need an $800,000 home. Maybe a $600,000 home will suffice, right? Before you do anything, do a budget. And that budget should include your true expenditures.
Yes.
Right?
That means everything that you spend money on monthly, whether it shows up as a debt on your credit report or not.
Sure.
That's my advice, is do a budget first, because if you do a budget, you truly know what you can afford and what you have to sacrifice to get that home, right? If you think about it, if I were to spend all the money based on just what I qualify for, and then now I have to pay those monthly mortgage bills.
Yes.
Will I be able to go on a vacation? Will I be able to, for example, I got a gym membership.
Yep.
Can I afford that gym membership now? If I have children, and then this, so I don't have kids.
Lucky you.
But do you put your kids in classes, piano, swimming, hockey, whatever it may be?
Whatever it is, yeah.
Whatever it is. Can you afford that? Right? I mean, if we think about how much dance class costs nowadays, and how much hockey. I mean, we're Canadian. Let's talk. The reality is, a lot of parents want to put their kids in hockey, right?
Yep.
How much does hockey cost? Now, if I buy this home, do I have the money to put my kid in hockey? Right?
Yeah.
And this is beyond thinking about let's get insurance, let's get investments. This is beyond all that. This is just everyday living. Now, the next question is, okay, now that you want all these things, how do you protect this lifestyle? Right? That's a whole other bill altogether, right? So once we do a budget, you know what you're playing with, you know what you have room to work with and what you don't have room, and you know what you have to sacrifice.
Exactly. Yeah. Prioritize. That's where you can prioritize, by looking at everything on a budget.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize all of the money they spend. I think that even people with kids, let's go with, and they're in several activities, not just one, but several. And, you know, and maybe, you know, you go do your nails every 5 weeks and whatever, lashes, and there's, oh God, there's a whole list of things that kids nowadays want to do. I don't think they think about, unless they put it down on paper, where all the money goes.
The advent of this thing here, that little sign that has the tap, is going to be the downfall of society.
For sure.
Right?
You don't know what you're tapping. You tapping here, there, in left and center. And no one looks at the credit card. That's what I'm saying. No one looks at it as money. They cannot feel it. It's just a card.
Just your statement. Yeah, so a fun experiment. And I do it with myself every so often, and I kind of, you know, I freeze up a little bit. I take a look at how much money did I buy on just food, junk food alone, like, you know, and coffee. I love my coffee. I love my Starbucks. And how many times do I see 256 or 305 or whatever that number is every day, every week, every month? And if I add that up, take it and compile it, how much did I spend on just junk food? Right? And whether it's a good meal or junk food, whatever it may be, just outside food. Am I spending $300, $400, $500 or more? What could I do with $300, $400, $500 a month? Right? It's a fun experiment, a scary experiment, an eye-opening experiment, but it's a worthwhile experiment.
Definitely. And no one's saying give up all of the,
No.
treats, but maybe you can start by having those treats, cutting them in half.
Yeah.
And because I mean, we shouldn't deprive ourselves completely, but at the same token, we should still have some self-control.
For sure.
I bought a Keurig, so now I use those machines every morning before I leave, because I know if I have that before, I won't jump over to Starbucks and buy one right away.
I go to Chico, so
So, with regards to, and we've talked about the budget. So basically, to get people towards home ownership, starting with a budget,
Mm-hmm.
and once you've done that, what would you say would be your next step?
Your budget is important to understand cash flow. I think goal setting is very important. Understanding, so speaking with a mortgage professional, speaking with somebody like Yulia and say, okay, what do I qualify for? Here's my budget. And then what is it going to take to get to that point? And then Yulia can sit with you and say, here's a realistic affordability.
it just what that happened today. Someone called me and it was like, "Hey, I want that house." They sent me MLS, and I said, "Okay, let's talk." And we talked, and it happened that they only can afford half of that house for now. And I said, "Don't start with your dream house. First, start with something that is realistic, and go from there."
A stepping stone.
Yes, the young couple in their late 20s, don't start with the million and a half. Yeah.
No, bad idea. Bad idea, right? But
At a time.
you can, you will be able to say, here's X amount of dollars you need for down payment.
Mhm.
Here's your closing costs. Here's your monthly expenses that come with this home. So now as a consumer, I know I need X amount of dollars. Okay, so if I know here's the target I need for a down payment plus closing costs, and I know this is how much money I have coming in and out, I can start planning accordingly to say I need to allocate X amount of dollars every month to make this happen. And here's the time frame I have to make it happen. Right?
That's perfect.
Right? Or, I mean, if you know let's be realistic. We're living in Toronto, GTA. Things are expensive. So at least you now have an idea of what it's going to take. Maybe you don't look at savings because you might be saving for the next 10 years, right? Maybe you start looking at other options. Maybe you speak to your parents, right? I mean, this is a whole other segment altogether.
A whole other segment, absolutely.
But talking about the reverse mortgage, Yulia, you're probably very familiar with it. The reverse mortgage, phenomenal tool. And let's be realistic.
Yeah, we're gonna have on one of our meetings soon. So
yeah, who's your account manager? Krista? Amazing. I love her to death. Let her talk about that, because now, instead of me waiting for mom and dad to inevitably pass away and pass the wealth over to me, and the majority of the wealth is with the seniors today.
It is.
They can take it out tax-free, hand it to me so that I utilize it today to get me into the market today. And that's a great segment for you, Yulia.
Yeah, Yulia actually has talked about that. We've talked about that before. And she's a firm believer in, sitting with people and looking at their credit reports and, helping them get to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Closing costs and all the things people don't think about.
Yeah, I think that's so tremendous. And that's an amazing job that you're doing, Yulia, because many mortgage agents don't do that.
Yeah, it's true. So kudos to you, because people do need help. And like Yulia was saying before, yes, there's a lot of resources available online. I'm that person, and I know my kids are those people too. If I just bought a phone and I have an instructions manual that goes with that phone, I am not going to read that instruction manual. I'm going to go to the person who has that phone. I'm going to say, can you just explain this to me? Because I don't have time to go through all this.
Yeah.
Just teach me.
But you know, they're having some interesting videos there, like it's cartoonish, but it's actually shows the budgets and all of those things for people who have that maybe 2 to 3 minutes.
Videos are great.
Yeah,
videos are fantastic, much better than reading through something.
Because I try to feed as much as I can in one session with my client or my prospect, but at the same time they lose interest if you put too much information on them.
I
and
agree.
they don't write anything down, and sometimes it's easy just for me to send the link to some of the parts that I thought was important. So that's how I try to do it. But I think the course in like holistic approach to your finances, something like that would be like for sure very, very, very interesting to many people and beneficial to all of them.
We're working on it. We're definitely working on it right now. So that, I mean, it's a gradual growth as how we're evolving. You know, I just got licensed with the insurance and investment stuff at the end of last year, right? And it was something I put off because it was I opened the mortgage brokerage, and you can only do so many things at one time, right?
Of course.
So open the mortgage brokerage, grow the team, get the infrastructure in place, make sure everybody knows what they're doing and how they're doing it, and we're getting there. We're definitely getting there because everything's a work in progress, and every time you think you're ready, you change, right? So there's always this evolution. And now that we've got this insurance license and everything, it's an opportunity to be a one-stop shop for a client where you don't have to send them somewhere else to say, go over there, right? So I like the ability of having do that, but it takes time. And I really love the education piece. I'm in my element when I can teach and educate. It's why I teach the mortgage course. So this is why I like doing this, because I'm in my element teaching.
Right.
Yeah.
It's important. It's important. So with that, we thank you so much, Asif. I think we're going to have you on again, because I think we're going to have to talk about a few more things. You've opened up some other discussions, and it's all very interesting. And I know people will get a lot of...
especially about insurance, where people take it for granted. I want to hear more about that.
Sure.
I was thinking about inviting someone to talk about insurance. So
listen, whenever you guys are ready, if you need me, I'm here. I'm glad to hang out with you ladies, and you tell me and I'm good to go.
Good. So I'm going to put your information in the video in the comments. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you or Google you or look you up, they can do that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you so much for your time. It was really nice to have you.
Great seeing you both. Take care and call me when you need me.
Enjoy some sun. There's still some sun out.
I'm hoping to.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Care.
Hi, it's you and me.
It's you and me. That was informative. That was
very important.
A lot of information.
A lot. You know what? Budgeting, but it's also important. It's also important, and you always talk about it.
I do. That's how I started. I'm telling you, like maybe 6 years ago, I stumbled upon Canada. I was thinking, okay, just going through different resources, and I was like, why this site has many links about financials? Let me go through that. And I was mostly on insurance space because that was my main position at the time. But then I went through mortgage part of it, through budgeting part of it, and I just started like exploring, and I was like, oh, that's a great resource. It's a lot of information, and I understand that not too many people gonna go through it, but it's a good point of reference for me just to talk to someone and send that particular link that was approved by Canada. Like it was approved, it was like polished for consumer, just to be ready to be read, and it will be like it will adhere to all of the standards. So it will be the information that is untamed, really clean and clear
And
for
current,
someone.
current
Yes, and correct. That's why, because it
yeah.
gets updated. It does get updated, like mostly, let's say weekly, with the
Yeah.
new stuff.
I'm going to look into it because I am interested, even not for myself so much, because I was taught at a young age to save,
Yeah,
save. But for my kids,
for sure.
I definitely need a new way to approach the subject of saving. They're not really, they don't like hearing that word.
Sure. And other thing that I wanted to do with you, probably want to do the course. Um, like Asif was very helpful. He was talking about finances, about his mom and his dad, and then his dad passed away, and then his mom was
Same
thinking
thing that
about that.
happened to me. Mm-hmm.
What about a single mom who's like,
Yeah.
right, who doesn't have anyone right now to care for the family, and all the financial stuff was handled by the other half that is left, either left or passed away. So
So
what
true.
that single mom or single dad,
Of course.
we live in, like, current world, everyone is different. So many women work now, and I see men staying at home with kids, so
Yeah.
that could be either way. So how would that remaining spouse would survive, and how would they go on with all of the spendings and all of the obligations that they have for their kids and for their house and for the mortgage and rest of it. So that would be a different topic that I would like to do with you, maybe at some
A
point.
great thing. Financial literacy is so important. Like, we want to get people to their dream of owning a property, a home. It could be a condo, it could be a townhouse, it could be a semi, it could be a detached, it could be whatever. It's a home. So we want to help people to get, and financial literacy is the way to get there. That's the first step. Learning
Yeah,
how to
it
save.
might not happen instantaneously, because some people will just
Right.
look at their budget and say, "Hey, by the way, I not today." But at least it's a good starting point of building something and thinking, okay, I can do it maybe in a few years from now, or maybe next year. It depends on how, what do I want to sacrifice right now, and how far do I want to go at the moment.
Everybody starts somewhere. We all start somewhere, and we can't start at the top, but we have to start somewhere, right? The only way to start is to do. So I think you froze on me again. But you're right. That's another segment, and we're definitely going to talk about that. I think we need to talk about that a lot. I think building your credit, building your savings, setting a goal. Those are
Yeah.
all things that we need to always talk about. In addition to whatever else we're going to talk about. What were we going to talk about on our next session? What were we going to talk about?
Did you want to talk about what was it? Inspection? Was it about like inspection?
I'm going to invite an inspector. I don't know if it'll be next week because I'm going to get in touch with them to see if it'll be next week. But we did want to talk about closing costs and the breakdown of closing costs.
And then maybe we can do reverse mortgages one day. Closing costs would be probably the next one, because it's a whole different. It will need at least half an hour.
Yeah, and the thing I like about reverse mortgages, and we can probably do that again, which I know we've already done, but we got to do it again, because right now with this pandemic especially, more people might find that useful that they never thought of doing before. So
I would love to invite Krista for that, and I think she's a great resource. She's been very
ask her.
Let's on reverse mortgages, and she knows them inside out. And I would love to hear from her.
Maybe next Wednesday we can have her on.
I will see how's
Ask
her
her.
schedule?
So,
Yeah.
so we're going to be talking about, the next segments are going to be closing costs, the breakdown
Yes,
of closing costs. We're going to be talking about reverse mortgages again. And every time we do this, we're going to talk a little bit more about financial literacy, because
a little bit. Yeah, let's touch on some of
yeah,
it.
it's a very broad topic, and it's the only way you can get to any goal. Home ownership is one, but any goal, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Yulia. It was my best. So we're going to talk to Krista. See when we can get her on, and I'm going to talk to the home inspector, and even an appraiser, because we want to talk about an appraiser.
Yeah, I want to work for that. Yes, I will. I have one or two that were interested of doing a video like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
People
And probably
understand
appraiser for now, and we'll see. Maybe we'll do a segment on as well in the future.
We got a lot to talk about, guys. And if anybody has anything specifically that they want us to talk about, please shoot us a message, and we would be more than happy to prepare something to help. In the meantime, go enjoy some sunshine, Yulia. It's beautiful today, finally. I hope you had a good birthday yesterday.
I did. Thank you so much.
Happy birthday to you again.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
We'll talk soon. Take care. Bye, Yulia. Bye, everybody.